All right, it's about time we get started. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. It's okay if you want to turn your video on, that's fine. If you want to leave it off, it's also fine. It would also be ideal if you could, turn on your. I can see some familiar names here. So, good evening, everyone, and welcome. Welcome. I'm expecting more participants. So just give me a moment. Can anyone hear me, though? If you can hear me, please unmute yourself and say hello.
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 Hello, good evening.
Hello, good evening. Good evening. Good to have everyone here.
Good evening.
Good evening. Good to have everyone here. Okay, so just bear with me a moment. I think some people are trying to join us. Okay. All right, we would have to start without them. The program starts at 7 and we're given already 5 minutes. So once again, my name is Brendo and it's good to have everyone here. I'm connected on the other device. Just for those who might be new to the Zoom platform, please be aware that there is a chat function there. Depending on if you're using a tablet, a mobile phone, or a laptop, you can use the chat function to send messages. I have multiple screens up here. I've got two screens behind me. I've got this laptop and I've got a tab connected. So if you send me a message, I think I should see it. Just bear with me a moment. Yeah, so if you send a message via the chat, I should see that. Additionally, just to make you aware, the session is recorded. Okay, so the session is recorded, but I'm not sure it will be made publicly available, but the session is recorded just so I can improve on it. At other times as well, there might be polls or quizzes for you to interact with. There will be a Q&A section. The Q&A sections would be at the end, but we'd also have a Q&A sections in about 30 minutes, just so you can ask questions. And something else that would also happen today would be a lot of screen sharing. I would walk you through these applications myself. And I think without further ado, it's about time we get started. We have a lot to cover today. I would also run you through the program of events we have for today. But once again, welcome and welcome to this session. This is the first of its kind. My name is Brendel Afo Museum. I am a postgraduate student, so I think this is about time I share my screen. Okay. Okay, so a bit of a backdrop for those who might not know me. My name is Brendel Afamizim. I am Nigerian. I school at the University of Strathclyde here in Glasgow, Scotland, the United Kingdom. I have a bachelor's degree in English. I have a master's degree in English. I have a postgraduate diploma in education, and I have a master's degree in teaching English to speakers of other languages. And at the moment, I am currently in my postgraduate and my PhD, doctoral studies in education as well. Now, you could tell from my background that I have enough experience in academia. Two of these programs are admittedly fully funded scholarship, especially this present one. Now, for many, I would understand the struggle of looking for a scholarship. It is challenging to look for a scholarship, and it is also challenging to apply for scholarships because these scholarships are very competitive. So today, to maximize your time here, I would encourage you, if you have a notebook, please take note of some things. At the end of today's session as well, I would share some materials. I would share some materials with you in case you want to follow up. Also, feel free to send me a message anytime. And if you need a one-to-one section, also make me aware of that. All right. So without further ado, that is just a bit of introduction about me. Just once again, for those who are just joining, my name is Brendola from Museum, and I'm a PhD student here in Glasgow in the United Kingdom. So welcome once again. If anything, you could also, I think at the moment I may not be able to see all the participants. Um, just bear with me a moment. Okay. All right, I have another device connected. So I think I should be able to see everyone now. If you do have any questions, please pop them in the chat and we should attend to them one after the other. So let's start then. How should we apply for scholarship? Remember, the goal again is applying for scholarships. How do we apply for scholarships? Well, the very first thing we want to know is what are the types of scholarships? So identifying the types of scholarships is very beneficial. Now, I have benefited from master's scholarship and a doctoral studies scholarship. And I will tell you for a fact, there are many of us, or many people do sleep on university-sponsored or university-specific scholarships. Now, these ones are not too common. There are over 1,000 universities worldwide. And if we narrow down the scope to Western universities, because they do have a lot of funding, imagine going through each university webpage or scholarship page to search for these scholarships. It will be rigorous, but it is good. It's one approach to take. So we could take a systematic approach to look for this scholarship. So one type of scholarship, or a common one, is university-specific scholarship. Now, many of these these universities have scholarship for international students. However, the prizes or the scholarship amount differs. If you say, for example, your tuition is 20,000 pound, you could get a scholarship for 10,000 pound. Now that here is a lot of money. If it's let's assume, for example, it's an undergraduate program, 4-year undergraduate program, and each year is 20,000 pound or 15,000 pound, and you have a scholarship that covers 10,000 pound every year, as long as you meet the criteria, it's a lot of benefit. You benefit a lot. So you saving 10 pound and only pay 5,000 pound. So many of these, however, are merit-based. Now, by merit-based, it means you might be asked to have graduated with a distinction in your university. By distinction, in Nigeria, we'll call that first class. Now, first class is also important. Now, some people say school na scam. I would understand that. However, if you're in university, do your utmost to graduate with a first class. If for any reason you cannot graduate with a first class, please attempt to graduate with a second class offer. By graduating with these, you can get merit-based awards, merit-based scholarship. I got a merit-based scholarship. I did not graduate with a first class. I graduated with a 2-1, and then I applied for a merit-based scholarship, and I got this merit-based scholarship. I think I got about 7,500 pounds, and that significantly, it was relieving to have saved 7,500 pounds. That's a lot of money. I think we're talking about close to 15 million naira at the moment. And that was just because I got a 2-1 and I applied for the scholarship and I got it. So merit-based scholarships are important, just one of them to keep in mind. Now, there are also government-funded scholarships. Good thing for those in Nigeria, or for those joining from Nigeria, some of this, we do qualify for Commonwealth scholarship. I have some friends in the university who came in through Commonwealth scholarship. However, it's always good to read the eligibility criteria for these scholarships. Something you should keep in mind regarding Commonwealth scholarship and Chevening scholarship is you might be required to return to your country. I would say that again. You might be required to return to your country. So which means after your 1-year master's program, it's usually a master's program for this scholarship. After your 1-year master's program, you would be required to return to your country. Now, someone would say, or some people would think, can I not just, run away? Well, there might be no possibility for that because your return ticket would also be bought, which means everything would be provided for you. You will get your stipend every month, you get your food, tuition, and you also get your return ticket to your country. So it's something important for you to look at the criteria. Now, we also have private scholarships. Now, these ones are not too common. They are usually sponsored by some bodies, some private institution, just to support particular disciplines. And then the final one here would be subject scholarships. Now, you would always get a lot of these in STEM. By STEM, I mean the science department. Now, for engineering, for business, for medicine, there are usually a lot of scholarship. So you can get subject-specific scholarships, and we'll look at some of them today. That is part of the things we're going to go into today. So once again, reiterate the four types of scholarships we have: university-specific scholarship, government-funded scholarships, private scholarship, and subject scholarships. Now, the criteria or the application for these differ, and we shall consider some of them in this session. If at any point you cannot hear me or you do have questions, please indicate and pop it in the chat and I should answer them. Okay, we make progress. Now, there's some undergraduate scholarships in the UK. Let's start with UK for now. There's some, and we've already mentioned Chevening Scholarship, although that one is for masters. Commonwealth, we've also talked about Commonwealth. This is very important. Now, one of my favorite scholarship, which I also have friends who have benefited from this, or who actually got a scholarship, is the Erasmus Mundus Scholarship. Now, the benefit of this particular one is you get to study across countries and across different universities. So you might spend 1 year, especially if you get the undergraduate scholarship or the master's one, you might spend some months, do some modules, some courses in a particular university, say for example in Spain, then you spend your other 6 months in the UK, then you spend your other 6 months in, say, Germany, and you will be taught in English. Now, so Erasmus Mundus Scholarship is also another one would do. I am planning to have another session on that particular scholarship specifically. For those who love the United States a lot, Fulbright Scholarship is primarily or predominantly for the United States, although some of it also you can get it in UK, but it's mainly for US universities. So if you're taking note, please also take note of Fulbright Scholarship. I would mention for these scholarships, they are highly competitive. For example, let's talk about the next one, which is the Great Scholarship. Now, for Great Scholarships, it's highly competitive. Oftentimes, you just need one in a whole country. Now, that is highly competitive, but someone does get it. And that is why my favorite type of scholarship would be university-specific scholarship. There is a systematic approach to look for university-specific scholarship, and I will show you some of those approaches. Would be using, for example, my university, the University of Strathclyde today, to find this scholarship. Once again, the Erasmus Mundus, the Commonwealth, the Chevening, the Fulbright, these are scholarships, and they provide full tuition. It's full tuition, and they also provide, accommodation, still give you stipend, and many times they cover your travel cost, which is very good. But like I mentioned, many of these scholarships require you to return to your home country. So if you're comfortable with that, that is good. But if you're not comfortable with that, you can ignore this scholarship. And please, it's also important not to sleep on what I've mentioned earlier, which is university-specific scholarships. For those just joining, we've mentioned the types of scholarships. And to reiterate, university-specific scholarships are the best. You can get fully funded scholarships with stipend from universities. There was one that just closed on the 1st of April, and that was from the University of Luxembourg. That was a very good university. And it's a good university, and the scholarship is great. It covers all your tuition and everything. And that is also really good. Sorry, I'm just getting a bit distracted here by those just joining. All right, so we make progress. We make progress. And then we also have the Rhodes Scholarship, which are fully funded scholarship to outstanding applicants. Now, there's also something to keep in mind here. For many of these scholarships that I've just mentioned, the one you find on this page, the Great Scholarship, Fulbright, Erasmus Mundus, Commonwealth. Now, many of these scholarships, because they are highly competitive, you might need to have graduated with a first class. Now, when I did the survey, many of you are still in universities. Many of you have just finished your university program. You can also have an academic CV even though you're still in the university. When you enroll in programs, when you join communities or clubs, those things you did, you can add them to your CV. And we're also going to look at how to write a proposal today. It's also another thing we'll look at, what a scholarship proposal and a personal statement to get into these universities. Something else to keep in mind about this university, they might need you to have secured an admission before applying to them. I'll say that again. For many of these scholarships, you might need to have secured admission before you apply. I'll give you an example. For example, Commonwealth Scholarship. You would need to apply to a university. Say, for example, you apply to the University of Oxford, the University of Cambridge, the University of Strathclyde. I'll just stick to University of Strathclyde because that is my university. So I would stick to that. So you apply to the University of Strathclyde. You are offered admission. Now you use your admission letter, or your admission letter is one of the things that require document to apply for Commonwealth Scholarship. So you understand that, the importance of that. And to get that admission, you also need to submit a personal statement. So today we would also look at writing a personal statement all along. If you can hear me and you've been following along, please just say yes or hi, just so I know everyone is following along and listening.
Yes.
Hi.
Okay.
Hi.
Okay. All right then. Okay. Thank you so much. To know I'm along. Okay. All right. You can also use the present features. All right. That's good. That's good. Just bear with me. Need to disable access. Okay. All right then. So we make progress. We make progress to the next one. Now, how? So this is where you might start writing. How should we? How should you search for these scholarships? What do you do? How do you search for these scholarships? These are the things we want to do. So this is where I would need you to take note. I think someone is not muted, and I should mute that now. Okay, Kareem, you're not muted. Just bear with me. I should mute that now.
Okay.
Okay. All right, muted you. All right. So making progress. Define your scholarship profile. Very important. Define your scholarship profile. This is very good. From the beginning, are you looking for undergraduate scholarships? Are you looking for master's scholarship? Or are you looking for a PhD scholarship? Define your country preference. Now, when I asked country preference, I got different responses. I think some persons say any country outside Nigeria, and that is good. It's good to have this, wide window, but you want to be specific. Where do you want to study? Because there are many universities, like I said, if we're talking about Western universities, you're talking about top universities in the Western society, you have over 1,000. You would want to narrow your search to one. So what country do you want to study? United Kingdom, USA, Finland, Canada, where exactly do you want to go? If you want to go to Spain, Italy, identify this. Now, the point is, or the rationale behind this is, once you identify the country, then you narrow your search down to universities. So universities, top 10 universities in United Kingdom, top 50 universities in top 20 universities offering English in Spain, something like that. But narrowing it down to a particular country would be good. Now, your field of study is also important. However, there is a word of caution when it comes to field of study, and that word of caution is the name of the discipline or field, it's not the same across universities. So what you might call TESOL, I'll give you an example. What you might call TESOL, which is Teaching English to Speakers of Other Languages, TESOL. In my university, it is called TESOLIC. That is TESOL and IC, which is Teaching English to Speakers of Other Languages and Intercultural Communication. In some other universities, might be TESOL. In other universities, it might be TEFL, which is Teaching English as a Foreign Language. So when you're looking for a field of study, I would encourage you to, vary your field of study. Like, is there something else this can be called? If you're looking for, I'll still use mine, field of study English. In some universities called linguistics, although there are similarities or differences, but some would call it linguistics. Some would call it languages. Some would call it simply English literature. Now, I'm not saying all of these are the same, but they're similar and are usually in the same department. So something to keep in mind. And now, when also looking for scholarship, also identify eligibility factors. Nationality. Now, you might see a very good scholarship, covers everything, and you just want to jump on it only to realize as an international student, you do not qualify for that scholarship. It'd be a waste of time and space to apply for that. Now, if you do not meet the criteria for a scholarship, please do not apply. It is highly competitive. If you do not meet the criteria, and one of those is nationality. For age, I would rarely say there's anything that has to do with age for scholarship. Usually, they do not mention this. There's no mention of age. In all my searches for scholarship, I've never seen anything regarding age. So that's not a problem. As long as you're above 18, that's not a problem. GPA, however, it is important. Like I mentioned earlier at the beginning, graduating with a first class or a second class upper would be most ideal. Are there cases of people getting a scholarship with a 2-2? Yes. I have examples of those right here in my university. You can get a scholarship with a 2-2, and there are things that will distinguish you for that scholarship. Those things that set you apart for that scholarship, we will discuss in another session. How you can get a scholarship even though you get a 2-2. Okay. Now, for language test scores, now these include TOEFL and IELTS. There are other exams, English language exams. Now, regarding this, I have something to say for language test. Many universities would ask you to provide proof of English competence. If you've ever applied for university abroad and you've been asked to provide proof of language competence, can you just say hi or just say hello or just say yes? You can unmute yourself and say yes. If you've tried applying and you've seen one of the requirements being language test scores like IELTS, TOEFL, and the rest. Anybody?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So if you are unfamiliar with this, that is, it does happen. You'll be asked to provide IELTS or TOEFL. There's a way around it. The way around it is if you finish your universities within 2 years, if you've completed your undergraduate studies or masters within 2 years in Nigeria, you can get what we call a medium of instruction letter. It's got an MOI. I will share my screen now. It's got a medium of instruction letter. The medium of instruction letter basically proves that you were taught in English. Now, if you upload this proof of English letter, you will be allowed to, that particular criteria can be annulled. Something else to also keep in mind is if you're currently studying, as long as you've been taught an English language, even if you're in your 100 level or 200 level, you can get your head of department to write you a letter or write a reference letter on your behalf to say that you were taught in English, that your 100 level courses were all done in English. I'll show you a sample of my medium of instruction letter and just now. Okay, just bear with me a moment and I will share my screen. Okay, so this is a sample. This is a sample of the medium of instruction letter. Short, simple, and clear to the point. I'm writing to affirm that the student, that is the name, you can take a screenshot of this if you want, and you could simply duplicate this. I'm sorry, I'm looking at another tab here. You could simply duplicate this, and when you duplicate this, by duplicate, I mean you could write this or reformat this, give it to uh, your department, read, and then maybe sign. I'm writing to affirm that a student undertook his master's studies in English language at a prestigious universities, and then you mention all the criteria. Now, basically, all you just need to do is to show that you were taught in this particular, you were taught in the English language. With that particular one, you can circumvent that process, that requirement of language test scores. There are other things too that can be done, but we would not talk about those now because of time. And if you do have questions regarding that, you can send me a message. Okay, we make progress. And funding needs also mention if you need full scholarship, or scholarship with stipend. Now, there are scholarships that you're given with stipend. So stipend means is a particular amount you're given every month that covers your rent, your bills, and also takes care of your feeding. And that way you are not required to work. Okay, we make progress. Something else to also keep in mind is use smart search strategies. What you search on Google also matters. So you want to use specific targeted search terms. For example, fully funded master scholarship in Canada for African students. Now, when searching for scholarships, please always specify. You could always use the expression international student because usually all universities refer to other students as, excuse me, as international students. So international students, you could mention international students. The graduate scholarship in USA, no IELTS, no language test. UK Chevening scholarship eligibility. So things like this, you want to be very specific. And something else you could screenshot or screen grab are some search terms for scholarships. You could look for some search terms for scholarship like fully undergraduate scholarship for international students, fully funded postgraduate scholarship for international students. And there is a reason I always put international student because you are international student. If you mention Nigerian, the university portal might not have Nigerian, and so you might not get that entry. Also, you might want to use developing countries like you last but one. Study abroad scholarships, study abroad scholarship for developing countries. You might want to use that because Nigeria is a developing country. So if you're from a developing country, you could use that. But oftentimes I always use international students. You could also search one without application fees. Some universities do not require application fees, especially universities in the UK. You do not need application fees for those. Okay, making progress. You also want to explore reputable sources. It's very key. Some people will tell you they have scholarships, but those scholarships do not exist if you search the portal. You want to search for credible sources, reputable sources for scholarship. And once again, I would always reiterate, please look for university-specific scholarships. Look for university-specific scholarships. I think after today, I might send a list of universities in different countries and their scholarship pages. You should check these pages and you'd find many scholarships. You'd find several, one that really applies to you. Let's now do a bit of overview of what I mean by searching for this scholarship. So now I'm going to share my screen again and let's just work together. We'll come back to the slides. Let's just work together to search for scholarship. Okay, all right. So here we are. Let me be sure. Okay, yes, that's it. Okay, so here we are at the University of Strathclyde. So basically, let's assume we have the list of universities we want. We have the list of universities we want in UK. We've decided UK is our preferred destination. We've also decided that, oh, we're looking for 10 schools or 15 schools or top 20 schools in United Kingdom or in Scotland or in England, and we want to look for scholarships. So let's say we've selected University of Strathclyde. So we type University of Strathclyde, University of Strathclyde. And at the end of that, you just simply add scholarship. University of Strathclyde scholarship page. University of Strathclyde scholarship page. Now, why do we need to do that? Just so we just get a direct link to the scholarship page and we will search for it ourselves. Remember, the target is university-specific scholarship. So we search for that and we simply go to scholarships and funding opportunities. And it brings us here. That is how we'll get to the site. You can do that for University of Luxembourg, you can do that for University of Bath, University of Aberdeen, you can do that for universities in the United States, University of Saskatchewan in Canada, You can do that for almost all universities. Just type the name of the university and at the end add scholarship page or scholarship page for international students. Now, when you come to the university scholarship page, oftentimes people use this filter. Of course, you want to filter to look for scholarship that is specific to you. A lot of people do that for Erasmus Mundus scholarship. However, I would discourage that. Just take your time, go through them. However, if you must use a filter, you must use any, perhaps international, because this way you know it's just for international students. You don't need anything for home student. Home student will refer to those who are indigents or citizens of the particular country, not those who reside there, of course. So now we have 33 open scholarships for international students. 33. However, not all of these are admissions or tuition. What we're looking for are tuition scholarship, partial or full funded. That's just all the two things we're looking for. So let's review these again. So we have the first one. And look, the deadline is 31st of July 2025. So if you're going to apply, if you belong to one of these subjects, hospitality and tourism, human resource management, marketing, account, you can apply for this. And it covers 8,000. Now, people say it's between 6,000 and 8,000. Now, the difference between the 6,000 and 8,000 depends on your subject area and the course fee. Look at that. Depends on your subject area and course fee. And this applies to international students. And it's towards your tuition fees. So, how much is your tuition fee for your chosen program? Now you want to go and look for, oh, what is accountability? What is the tuition fee for this? Because usually it's a 1 year program, it's a master scholarship. How much is it? And if you deduct this, how much is left? There's one way to look for it. Another one we could find, this one ends 31st, and it's for tuition fees. Now, and it says full-time undergraduate and covers only 20%. Each year, 20%. Might not be enough, but it's still partial funding. Now, this one also has something for Nigerians. Now, this is the Great Scholarship. It's one of those we looked at the beginning. Now, this is Great Scholarship from University of Strathclyde, but for a particular department, Justice and Law. For only 4 countries, Ghana, Nigeria, India, and Pakistan. Full-time tuition fees, and it's 10 grand to 10,000 pounds taken out. So your tuition might be 15,000 or 17,000, and you have 10,000 deducted from that. That is significant. It's something you might want to consider. And the deadline for that is the 27th June 2025. Now, you would notice that all of these are for master's program because it says here 1 year postgraduate study. Okay. Now, we also have another one for living costs and tuition. Now, this is also another one for international students, and anyone can apply to this one, but this is for PhD. Now, for depending on anyone here, I don't think there's anyone here looking to apply for a PhD scholarship, but if you are, you might also want to consider this. Now, we have lots of scholarship for the business school. So anyone who also wants those in business and you want to apply for this, it says between 10,000 and 17,000, dependent on your experience. So have you got a background in marketing, management, human resource management, business, economics? You can get this scholarship. And so what have we done so far? Essentially, what we've done so far is demonstrate that you can apply for scholarship, university-specific scholarships. Just go to the university scholarship page and search for the scholarships yourself. Go to the scholarship page and search for the scholarship yourself. That is better. I will share a list later on where you could, I think that is where this comes in. So that is where this particular list comes in. You need to create a scholarship tracker where you identify the name of the scholarship, the specific scholarship, the country, the deadline, the eligibility, particularly if you meet the criteria, the funding, if you've applied. This is important. If you've applied, yes. If you've not applied, no. So have a list of 10 scholarships. When you search for these ones, have the list down. And when you have the list of the scholarship, you can start applying to the scholarship. But it's better to be systematic. By systematic, I mean do your research. Find the university-specific scholarships. Is Canada your dream? All right, find 10 universities in Canada. When you identify these 10 universities in Canada, whether for undergraduate or for postgraduate program, then look for the scholarship. Go to the scholarship page and just search one after the other. Don't use filter. The only time to use filter, and I think the only time it would be okay, would be when you just want to filter to international students only. When you do that and then your result is limited to international students, that's fine. Anything other than that, please do not. Just take your time and search for this scholarship. Very important. I have a copy of this document, and if you're interested, you can drop a message in the chat, or you can send me a message on WhatsApp via the same number, and I should send you this particular document with scholarships and the link to the particular scholarship. Okay, making progress. Many people are interested in looking for scholarship and they want to travel this year. However, they do not have the necessary document. And sometimes it's amusing that someone wants to travel abroad for a scholarship, but they do not have an international passport. So you apply for a scholarship that, of course, the deadline is, say, May. May 30th is the deadline. You applied for the scholarship, you did everything right. You applied for the scholarship, you succeeded. You applied for admission, you were offered admission, you used your admission letter to apply for scholarship, but you don't have an international passport. That might not be ideal. So you want to have everything in place. Let's start with the first thing you need to get ready. Because for many of these scholarships, the first thing is to secure an admission. A statement of purpose, or what you call SOP, or the personal statement, is crucial. Now, like using my own as an example, I have my own personal statement here, and I would show you. Oh, so sorry, I am sharing the wrong screen. Okay, just bear with me a moment. Okay, so these are some documents that are required. Your statement of purpose, your personal state, or which is also known as SOP, or your personal statement, your academic CV. I would also show you an example of academic CV. Recommendation letters, we'll talk about that. Academic transcript, very important. Would not be able to show you that here because it's a confidential document and I do not want that to be public. Your tech scores, we'll also talk about that one, and your research proposal, usually for PhD and master's research. For master's research and for PhD, we're going to look at one. But if you're undergraduate, you might not need the research proposal. For those who are going for masters, we would also look at that. Just bear with me a moment. Okay, so let's now analyze this. Let's start with the statement of purpose. Now, even if you want to study in for any university, you'll be asked to provide a statement of purpose. One of you here knows what a statement of purpose here is. If you do, you can unmute and say yes. You know what a statement of purpose is? A personal statement. Anyone? Okay. All right. Now, a personal statement. Anyone hear me? I think I need to confirm that everyone can hear me. If you can hear me, you could just give me a thumbs up, or you can unmute yourself and say hi, just to be sure.
Hello, I can
Oh,
hear you.
thank you. I can see some message in the chat. All right.
We can hear you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. All right.
I hear you.
All right. Thank you. Now, a personal statement is more like, why do you want to study in our university? There are several formats online you'll see online for writing a personal statement. However, this is what I really want you to know when it comes to personal statement. Make your personal statement personal. And I think there is a word of caution here, which is In writing your personal statement, now some persons use AI, ChatGPT, and all those things. It's not bad. I mean, if you use it ethically, it's not bad. But just know that many universities frown at the use of artificial intelligence or generative AI for academic writing. When you use AI to write your personal statement and it's obvious, you could get disqualified. So if you must use AI, know how to use it, and like I said, use it ethically. Now, I have mine here, and like I said, I would always use mine as an example. I wouldn't use someone else's, even though I have other examples of others. Now, this is the one I use for my master's, still at the University of Strathclyde. I will show you, and I think that is up now. Okay. So we'll review this. Just a quick one. Just a quick one. Remember what I said, it has to be personal. There is a title, and I have no idea why I have one paragraph with just my name. I have no idea. The only reason I have this document here is I was just thinking, okay, I need to show proof of a personal statement, an example of that, and that's what I have here. So at your leisure, you could screenshot or take a quick read of these, but there should be a path. Let's talk about the structure of this anyways. So there is a title, there is an introduction, and the first paragraph. Why do you want to do this? And like I mentioned, make it personal. The use of the word the repetition I, to refer to your work. And the particular program you want to do, why? A master's degree in TESOL and intercultural studies, which is what I want to do, will be a milestone in my professional career, which means I must have talked about my professional career. So if you need a guide on how to write a personal statement, or you want to see some samples and some examples of that, you can send me a message and we can have a one-on-one session on that. Return to the main slide. So that's an example of a personal statement. You would need a personal statement to secure an admission in most schools in university in United States, in Canada, and United Kingdom. Very important. You also need what we call an academic CV. Now, an academic CV usually would show the papers you've published, what you've done, your previous academic experiences, and all those things. What if you're just an undergraduate? Well, you can have a university experience, you can have an academic CV with your WAEC. Were you the head boy in your secondary school? Were you the head of, you lead a particular club group? You can put all of those there. So you can have an academic CV even though you're an undergraduate. Let's talk about the things you've done in your university. But for postgraduate students, if you're looking for a master scholarship or PhD scholarship, of course, you need more than that. So here again is another example of an academic CV. And once again, I would be using my own academic CV as an example. I would not use that of someone else's. So this is an example of an academic CV, and there are different parts. Now, for different countries, you could have specific formats. Now, this is name, my field, a summary, a contact. I think I'll just hide that. Okay. The contact and programs. Like I said, those who did undergraduate, you could mention a part of it where you talk about, okay, so the different subject, what did you get? So for those with A's, you could see here, and as you can see, I don't have A's, unfortunately. But if you have publications, if you've been writing in any online website, newsletter, articles, you can write all of those there. If you have certificates, you could put it here. If you've volunteered, you can put it here. If you've won scholarships and award, you can put them here. Just put everything you can into the CV. And it's best to have your CV on one page. Very ideal to have your CV on one page. So this is an example of an academic CV. And like I said, if you want more examples of that and a step-by-step guide or a one-to-one session, you can let me know and then we can look at that. Another thing you might also need is a recommendation letter. Now, this part is important. Now, a recommendation letter from your teacher, from your mentor. No, usually, if you're looking for a scholarship, an academic reference letter is important. So, your lecturer in university, your teacher in secondary school, the principal of your school might write you a reference letter, and they could date it just to say that you are suitable or you're fit for that scholarship. Now, if required, then your test scores, you need to get them ready. If you're planning, now I mean this honestly. If you're planning to get a fully funded scholarship, I think the best advice I can give is just take any language test. There are cheaper ones. There are far cheaper ones. You'd get them online. Just go to the particular university portal and find out the language test they approve. Many of them have up to 10, including Duolingo. So you could even get a Duolingo English language test. Some universities accept that. They're cheap. You need to get it. This is because if one of the essential criteria is a language test and you do not have that language test, you will be disqualified. Can you imagine losing on that opportunity because you do not have the language test, but you meet every other criteria that would disqualify you. So if you have enough time, just try to write a language test. And for those looking for postgraduate scholarship, PhD, master's, you would need the research proposal. Yeah, you would need a research proposal. I have an excellent guide on how to write a research proposal. Once again, I will just show you my own research proposal for my own PhD scholarship. And so this proposal, I actually won two PhD scholarships for this particular one. And I will show you one of it. So this is just an example of the PhD scholarship proposal. There is a title, there is a research context, and I think an important part of this, of course, your research questions and timeline. How you plan to achieve this in the timeline. So if you need more examples of these or you need a one-on-one section discussing this, you can just send me a message on the same contact. Okay, so we've talked about preparing your application documents early. How would you know what documents to prepare? So besides these documents, besides these particular documents that are here, you also need to look at the eligibility criteria of the other scholarship and check the necessary documents. And when you see the document, someone asks a question. Oh, okay. Now, someone asked a question. I would answer that question later when it's time for Q&A, which should be about 2 or 3 minutes. Okay. All right. Now, what have we talked about so far? At the end of everything, please remember to apply smartly and strategically. I would always say be systematic about it. Be strategic about it. Follow a systematic process. Prioritize fully funded scholarship. Don't just apply to one. Apply to several. Apply to high competition scholarship like the Commonwealth, the Great Scholarships, Fulbright Scholarship, university specific scholarship, even moderate competition. Moderate competition will be university specific. Trust me, you need university specific scholarships. I will be printing a list of university specific scholarship for different discipline. But if you need one tailored to you particularly, you can also send me a message or a one-to-one section. Now, you also need to tailor each application. Now, some people do something, which is they write a personal statement and they simply copy and paste. Simply copy and paste one to all universities. I don't think you want to do that because they can always tell if it's copy and paste. You want to make sure that university or your application is tailored to that university. And I can show you how to do that later. So in conclusion, review and repeat monthly everything. Check for new opportunities. You want to set up Google Alerts. Or if you have some websites that do that, I can share some websites that you can find scholarship, and you could just set up alerts. And then I am also setting up a YouTube page where I would also be publishing scholarships regularly. I will drop a link, I think, on the chat, and for anyone interested, you could look at it and subscribe. Even though there are no videos for now, you could still subscribe so that when there's any you get a notification for that. I think that's about that covered, and I shall stop sharing my screen now, and it's time for questions. So thank you once again for being here, and it's now question time. Please, if you do have questions, please use the raise hand feature, or you can simply unmute and say something, and then I would answer. Okay, before then, I'll just start with a question on the chat. So someone asked, must the language test be academic, or would that accept general? Now, it is best if you're looking for academic scholarship to take the academic language test. However, if you do have general, you can also use that. But I would suggest for academia, if the purpose is academic, please look for academic scholarship. There's a difference between academic scholarship and general ones because the language differs, especially for reading test. Reading test for academic test, reading for academic, you would get passages from lecture books, from textbooks, things that will test your knowledge to comprehend materials, academic materials and concepts. However, you don't get that in general. That is one difference. So it might require you to get academic tests. So just find out from the universities and always reach out to them via email. Okay, I hope that is covered. Any other question? Okay, any other questions? You can unmute and ask questions. Okay. Wow. It appears there are no questions. So that would evidently mean everything is clear. There's a message. Okay, Edit Mario. You can unmute.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Edit.
Good evening, and thanks for the opportunity. Most of the requirements, I'm an HND holder, and I mean, from the times I've researched, the schools I've checked, it tends to be a barrier having a HND because most of their requirements, they'll say BSc or a 4-year course, 5-year course, undergraduate program. And then, I mean, if it's already a problem, a hindrance in the beginning, it tends to be more difficult when it comes to getting scholarships. So I don't know. Because the ones I've applied to so far, I had to do extra search and do a lot of, unlike if it's a BSc holder, just go straight, apply, and then wait for a response. So is there any particular, I mean, I know it has to be around mostly UK because for Canada, I don't know, for Canadian universities, I don't know if there is hope at all for that. So,
okay.
I've actually
Go on, please.
Yeah, I've actually been battling with that. And anyway, that's what I want to know. The other one is not relevant.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you so much for that question, Edith. Now, for HND holders, I also try to search for scholarships. Search for those. I'm going to be very frank. It's just my 2 cents. I think you might need to do another program, a 1-year program in your home country. Now, Edith, I would assume you're in Nigeria. So I might just suggest doing a 1-year program in Nigeria, master's program. Some universities would allow you to, go through master's with that. To try and see if you can do a master's program or a postgraduate diploma program. Because what you've just mentioned, the HND will continue to be a hindrance for you to get even admission. Now, there are some schools, it's that there are some universities that will tell you you would need you to do further program here. But if you need a scholarship, if you really need a fully funded scholarship, it's the same way you've said. I will tell you, advise just do a master's program. Just look for one of the universities in Nigeria and do a quick master's program, 1 year, very quick. So let's assume you finish your master's program, you start in October, and say October the next year you're done, and then you apply for scholarship to begin in January. And then you can apply. By the time I applied for my scholarship, I did not have my master's certificate yet. I would say that again, when I applied for this scholarship, the first scholarship I had, I did not have my master's certificate yet. I did not even have my transcript ready. I was pursuing it when I got it. At the same time, when I applied for my PhD scholarship, I did not have my second master's certificate. But the process of doing it, you can get your transcript. So it is frank response, try to do 1 year program. Okay? Just try to do that 1 year program. I would recommend that. But I would also keep searching. You can send me a message on the chat and on to the number, and then we'll see if I can come up with something for that. Okay. Or we could also look
All
for
right,
cheap
thank you.
alternatives. Yeah, just send me a message. We could look for cheap alternatives, very cheap alternatives. Okay. Any other question?
All right.
Yes, please. I have a question.
Okay.
Good evening. So you mentioned that as long as you're above 18, you could stand a chance of getting the scholarship. Does that also work for undergraduate students?
Yes. Yes, of course. Of course. As long as you're above 18.
You have
Of
to be above 18 to get an undergraduate scholarship.
Yes. Did you join from the beginning, Michelle?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. So there are undergraduate scholarships, and we've looked at some of them, and there are so many undergraduate scholarships. But sometimes it is usually difficult to get fully funded undergraduate scholarship because undergraduate scholarship usually run for 4 years. So what you get most times would be partial funding. Now the partial funding would cover about 50%. If you're comfortable with that, 50% of your tuition, and it will be for every single year as long as you meet the criteria. So they might tell you to graduate with, finish your first year with good grades, and then as long as you get those grades, you get 50% off from your tuition every year. So that is something to look at for undergraduate. But if you are currently in, so let me ask you, Michelle, are you in university now, or you just done with secondary school?
So I'm just done with secondary school.
Okay. So you can look for undergraduate scholarship. You can find partial funding. Significant amount will be taken off. Okay, and trust me, I think you also want to go for those. They are really nice. Right. Thanks for your question, though. Okay. Any other question? Okay. And it's a wrap. So by way of review today, what have we looked at? Well, once again, I want to thank everyone for being here, and we have reviewed that for you to get scholarships, just know there are four scholarship types. You have the government funded, you have private funded, you have university specific, and you have discipline specific. And I say my favorite would be university specific. They are not very competitive. They're not very competitive. So you could be competing with about 100 or 200% compared to scholarship like Commonwealth or the Chevening scholarships where you're competing with thousands of people. Please, if you're also going to write scholarship proposal or academic proposal, be careful with your use of AI. Now you can use those things to write, but as long as you do it ethically, you shouldn't have a problem. If it observed, your paper or your application would be rejected or could be rejected. Just something to keep in mind. So I think that then brings us to the end of this session. Thank you everyone for being here. And in the absence of further questions, we would end this session. Once again, thank you so much. And if you have further questions, you can then ask me on the chat. Have a great day, everyone, and a pleasant evening.